Good afternoon. Welcome to the Bloomington Rotary Club's weekly celebration of service. I'm Steve Wicks, and I'm honored to serve as your president this year. We have a full agenda highlighted by an induction, a Paul Harris ceremony, and an interesting talk from one of our club members. So last Tuesday, we experienced our first bad parking day of the semester. Found out after the fact that the IU admissions office was hosting senior week. So the campus was full of high school seniors and their parents, all of whom seemed to want to park at the Union. So remember that club members during our meetings can park for free at both the Henderson and the Atwater garages. Last week, I parked at the Atwater garage. I had a good experience. Instead of creeping along 7th Street dodging students, I had a nice walk from the Atwater garage to here. So if you'd like to learn more about either option, please see me. Please silence your electronic devices. Okay, on this day in history, 2 years ago, September 30th, 2023, a bipartisan deal to avoid a U.S. government shutdown was signed just hours before the midnight deadline. The agreement provided federal funding for 45 days. And now Lauren Snyder will provide today's reflection.
It seems like you're blaming me for the government shutdown that's pending here with that transition. Go Fever. Third time's the charm. Is it the speed? It does sound bad, doesn't it? Oh. Here? Okay. We'll try. So hold it, Steve, hold it away from your face. All right. My name is Lauren Snyder. I was the president of this club in 2018, 2019, but I joined Rotary in 2009 in Franklin, Indiana, where I served as two-time president in the Franklin Club. And then I transitioned my business down here in 2015, and I served as the club president. I was preceded by Mr. Mike Baker. I took lashings for weeks and months from that guy. I still wear fun socks for the record. But just a quick rundown. I actually had my PowerPoint presentation from our transition to Aaron in his presidency. So I'll just go through this quick rundown. One of the first things we did was we transitioned the name to Celebration of Service. It wasn't just another luncheon. It was, we're going to celebrate and have a good time with our friends and do some cool work in the community as well, and maybe be educated on a community service type project or an event going on. So some things we accomplished. We added membership photos to our DACDB to 90%. We added and created the Lunch Buddy program. We had weekly happy dollars, normal and hyper happy dollars. We had the speaker recognition, which we referred to as the hat instead of the trinket that we gave away, something that most people probably didn't do much with. We made that financial contribution to a charitable cause within the community. Then we collaborated with the Sunrise and Thursday Club for our economic outlook and toast. We grew our young professional members by a net positive of 6. We led with service, 12 months of service, 16 projects, 149 volunteers, 391 hours, probably more than that. But then we complemented all of that service with fun and relationships. We had 6 socials, and we had that Lunch Buddy program. We added value through informative programs, IU baseball, nonprofits, classical music, violin and piano, Switchyard Park, photojournalism, and Rotary Scholars. Other highlights from 18 and 19, new club administrative assistant, Natalie Blaze, sad face. Record RILA attendance, Rotary Toast record year, Centennial wrap-up, Mike Baker led the charge in benefiting the Boys and Girls Club. Myanmar Water Project, Jim Bright was honored with the Orphe Bridges Award. Inaugural It Takes a Village for Children and Maternal Health. Website update, Archives and Restoration Project, new hard copy club directory. Total membership was only +2, so Tracy's kicked us into gear on that one. And at that time, I was inducted in June. I had a newborn in September. I don't know what the hell I was thinking, but I just did it. You just figure it out, right? And one of my last photos to my transition conversation was a picture of me reflecting in the CN Tower for the International Convention in Toronto, looking down. I did the skywalk. And Next to it is a picture of my son, only a few months old, playing in a water table with a Rotary sticker on his back. And yeah, we laugh. It was cute, but the things we take for granted in our lives, that our children can play in water, that they can turn on the faucet and not think too much about it. That really hit home with me and resonates with me today, as our society is heavy right now. In a group I was with recently, there was people just sharing openly, and I said, guys, let's take a pause. Let's focus on what we can control. Let's focus on the positivity. And that picture of Coleman at that water table, what can I influence every day as a father, as a husband, as I interact with each of you? I can treat you with kindness and compassion and understanding and forgiveness and love. We need more of that. And I think we did a hell of a job during my presidency, and you guys have done a better job. I'm sorry I've been so absent lately, but life comes at us. I love you all, appreciate Rotary and what it's done for me in my life, as I am the third generation Rotarian. My dad has been a Rotarian for 50 plus years in Franklin. It's a pleasure and an honor for me to be here today and to have served this club. Thank you.
Lauren, thank you. I was feeling pretty good about my presidency this morning. Now I feel like a slacker. But it's time to draw the charity of the quarter for the next quarter, and I think it's appropriate that Lauren be the one to do it since he started this program. Unfortunately, I forgot my hat.
Ziploc bag's good too. All right. The Lake Monroe Water Fund. So that seems appropriate. Thank you.
Okay, Andrea Murray will introduce our guests today.
We have a nice list of guests today. Sheila Reed is the guest of James Capshew. And you can stay seated or stand up as you wish. We'll give you a round of applause at the end. Fred Alpert is the guest of Kyla Cox Deckard. Debbie Albright is that Albert? Sorry, guest of Trent Deckard. Shrikar Vasan is the guest of Mr. Jim Bright. He brings us wonderful guests. And Jess Smith is also the guest of Jim Bright. Aubrey Cedar is the guest of Dawn and Melinda Cedar. Do we have any guests online?
Not to my knowledge.
All right. Well, if there are any out there and not saying anything, welcome.
Nope, we're good. All Rotarians.
And I have one last announcement on the guest sheet, though it's not really a guest. It is Elijah Ramos, who is a transfer member from Los Angeles. Elijah, give us a wave back there.
Thanks, Andrea. We have a couple of birthdays to observe this week. On the 4th, Eric Spoonmore. On the 5th, Colleen Curry. Anniversaries: on the 1st, 1 year, both Tom Gallagher and Leslie Kotsinko. Also on the 1st, Art Omick, 11 years. And on the 4th, Rex Hillary, 14 years. Announcements: refugee assistance. Club is sponsoring an Iraqi refugee family. They need help in 2 areas: conversation practice in English with the parents to improve their spoken English skills, and job hunting and job preparation assistance for their daughter. Daughter has intermediate English skills. She's 20 years old. Please reach out to Dave Meyer if you'd like more information or you think you can help. Hoosiers Outrun Cancer event is Saturday. It's the oldest and largest 5K event in Indiana. Some club members are participating, some are volunteering. I'll be running the 5K as a member of the Handlebars, which is a tribute to the recently deceased oncologist and Bloomington North Rotarian, Dr. Mark Dayton. Also this weekend, the Bloomington North Rotary Club is helping to sponsor the Down Syndrome Buddy Walk. That is on Sunday. Registration sign up starts at 1. The event is at 3. Annual Rotary Toast is the event that funds our club and foundation's local charitable giving. Don't forget to buy your tickets for the event scheduled Friday, November 7th at Ivy Tech. See me or go to rotarytoast.com for your tickets. RYLA, Rotary Youth Leadership Academy at Bradford Woods is just a month away. So far, our club has 2 high school students lined up with 2 other strong possibilities. Youth Services Chairs Joy Harder, Leanne Bradford can help you if you know of a high school student who might want to attend RYLA. Finally, WonderLab is partnering with Duke Energy and SCCAP, and they invite families to come to WonderLab on October 12th from 1 to 4 p.m. Admission is free. There are opportunities to sign up for energy assistance from Duke, SCCAP services, and you can get WonderLab access passes. Chocolate mousse will be there, big giveaways, activities, more. Last year, they had hundreds of families attend. They hope for more this year. And now it's time for the Mystery Rotarian. Remember, if you know the answer, put up your hand. Don't shout it out. If you're online, put up your hand electronically. First clue. This Rotarian worked 2 years in Mexico and 1 year in London as a U.S. Department Foreign Service Officer with the State Department. Later, this Rotarian worked as an IU International Services employee, assisting inbound international faculty staff. Put up your hands if you know the answer. Okay. Second clue. This Rotarian ran competitively at multiple distances for 35 years, winning every single age group competition with the exception of a second place finish in the Chicago Half Marathon. Put up your hand if you know the answer. Final clue. A club member for over 10 years and a Paul Harris +2 fellow. If you receive a card from this club, this Rotarian most likely sent it. Okay. There are quite a few. And the answer is Martha Wales. Martha, if you could just raise your hand so people, oh, that hurt. There's a picture of Martha volunteering at Teachers Warehouse a few years ago. She was a member of one of the first foreign service classes to include women. Martha worked for IU for 35 years, mostly as a half-time employee. And she ran her first competitive race, a local YMCA 5K, shortly after turning 40. She ran until her mid-70s. She still misses it. In one race, 5 of 9 women in her age group were named Martha. So Martha, congratulations. There are so many people who make this club go. Martha is one of them. For the newer members of the club, I encourage you to meet Martha and the other older members, the longtime members of the club. They have fascinating stories and they've done so many interesting things. So Martha, thank you. I think Sarah Laughlin had her hand up halfway through the first clue, and Judy and Sally. Okay, I will say that Judy sponsored Martha as a club member, and then also Martha sponsored the late Mary Getsy as a club member. Leslie, did anyone get it online? Okay, doesn't sound like it. Okay, and now we have a new member induction ceremony.
All right, I'd like to invite Randy to come up front. There you are, over there. As you're coming up, I'll read your bio. Randy Sanders is currently serving as the Scout Executive and CEO of the Hoosier Trails Council Scouting America, formerly known as the Boy Scouts of America. Randy arrived in Bloomington, coming from Bakersfield, California in June. That's a good time to leave Bakersfield. He and his wife, Nicole, have one son, Isaiah, who's 26. He received his bachelor's degree in Parks, Recreation, and Tourism Management from North Carolina State University. He enjoys hiking, camping, backpacking, visiting national parks, and going to baseball games. No wonder you and Jim get along so well. Randy has been a member of Rotary previously in Winter Haven, Florida, and Bakersfield. Randy is also a past president for the Kiwanis Club of Cimarron, New Mexico. He has served his community in a number of ways over the past 30 years. He's served on the boards of a local housing authority, the Chamber of Commerce, a community planning group, and has spent time as a Sunday school teacher and marching band booster. Randy is also an Eagle Scout. And with that, I'd like Sally to come up and read the induction language.
Randy Saunders, on behalf of the board and membership of Bloomington Rotary Club, it's a great pleasure to welcome you as the newest member of our club. We look forward to the fellowship that we will share, as well as your participation in the club projects that make our club, community, country, and world a better place. Though Rotary is not a political organization, Rotarians are vitally concerned with good citizenship and the election of effective leaders to public office. While Rotary is not a religious organization, it's built on those highest principles that have served as a moral compass for people throughout the ages. While Rotary is an organization of business, professional, and community leaders pledged to uphold the highest ethical and moral standards, Rotarians believe that worldwide fellowship and peace can be achieved when people work together and uphold the Rotary motto of service above self. Rotary activities exemplify the partnership, respect, and generosity that one would expect from people who believe they have a responsibility to help others. Randy, you have been chosen for membership in the Bloomington Club because your fellow members believe you to be a leader in our community and because you possess the qualities to champion the message and principles of Rotary. You are a representative of your vocation and talent within our club and community. You've now become an ambassador of Bloomington Rotary, carrying the ideals of service to all within your sphere of influence. Our community will know and judge Rotary by your character and service. We will also look to you for inspiration as we strive to become better Rotarians. We will now pin you with the distinguishing badge of a Rotarian, your Rotary pin. We ask that you wear your Rotary pin with pride in your many endeavors, including every Tuesday, and as a symbol of our recognition of your contribution towards a better world through your Rotary membership. Fellow Rotarians, please rise if you are able and welcome our newest member, Randy Saunders. And now we'll take some pictures. Good job.
Mike, you ready? And now we'll transition into a Paul Harris ceremony.
Good afternoon, Rotarians and guests. Glad you're all here today and you found a place to park. I'm not going to do my normal routine because I practiced all week trying to say acetaminophen. So I decided that joke wouldn't work, so we're going to move on. Hey, Jim, this is going to be great too. Did you know the title of his book? I think this is what he's going to talk about today. What happened at the Wells House when President Wells was out of town? That's going to be great. So, Kyla, where's Kyla? You really invited your mom and Fred for this? Okay. And by the way, Fred and Debbie, they're an item. Anyhow. So today before I get started, several members have asked me, you're up here always asking us to support Rotary International, and we understand that, but where does the money really go? So I looked at the Rotary International website, and for 2024, these were the top things that Rotary spent our money on. Disease prevention and treatment, over $26 million spread across the world. Water sanitation, community economic development, basic education and literacy, maternal, child and health care, environment, peace building, and the legacy program preventing and eliminating polio in our world. So as you can see, all good causes. So now, will Bill Perkins, Winston Schindel, and Dave Meyer please come forward? President Tracy, will you join me up here to help? And Lynn? You know how it goes, so you can get up here. So all three of you are long-term Rotarians in our club. You've supported both Rotary International and our club locally, and you're still giving, which is important. Dave, this is your Paul Harris +1. Bill, this is your Paul Harris Fellow +3. And Winston, well, did you know that Winston never really was invited to join our club? When he was president of the IU Union, he just started coming to our meetings to get a free lunch. And then after about 5 or 6 years, we just figured he was a member. Anyway, this will be his Paul Harris +7. After that, bronze statue. Bill, you've been in our club since 2013, Dave, 2018, and Winston since 1989, the year I was born. So if we could pin these three gentlemen. That's Dave, and I'll do Bill.
Okay.
Okay. Rotarians and friends, would you please rise and help celebrate these three Paul Harris Fellows?
Bill Brown will introduce our speaker.
It is my honor to introduce today's speaker. He brought his own fan club with him today. James Capshew has deep roots in Bloomington after graduating from Bloomington High School in its 99th class, the final year before it was renamed Bloomington High School South. He attended Indiana University, majoring in psychology. Working as a residential houseman for Chancellor Herman B. Wells, his interest expanded to the history of psychology as well as the history of higher education. Pursuing graduate work at the University of Pennsylvania, he earned his PhD in the history of science and got his first job at the University of Maryland while living in Washington, D.C. In 1990, Capshew became a faculty member at IU's Department of History and Philosophy of Science and Medicine and had a 34-year career at Indiana University, retiring as professor emeritus and former university historian. Author of books and articles in history and psychology and the history of higher education, including Herman B. Wells, The Promise of the American University in 2012. Today's talk will give a preview of his latest book, Making Indiana University History, Landscape, and a Sense of Place. James Capshew.
Turn this off or what? Can you help me? Sorry, guys. Okay.
So this is basically a preview of my book. There's a lot of material here. It's been published. It's actually available for free. It's digitally published by the IU libraries. And I'll send you I'll put the URL at the end at the thing. There will be some print on demand copies available, so probably for $20 or something like that at some point. But right now you can just read it for free and look around. So I want to start with, oh, I've got to get everything, all my stuff done here. Okay. Okay, there we go. I'm doing two different screens and things like that, so sorry about that. A scrawny boy, aged 9 years old, pedaled his 20-inch red Swin bicycle up Woodlawn Avenue from Bryan Park to the Indiana University campus, looking for adventure. The warm spring air was full of mysterious promise. Accompanied by a friend who lived across the street on Maxwell Lane and one of his brothers, the boys knew that the winding paths through the woods, immense gray buildings, and running water would await them. Once on campus grounds, anticipation gave way to delight in the present moment, riding endlessly on interconnected walkways, catching goldfish in the creek left discarded from fraternity parties, searching for a drinking fountain in the cavernous Union building. The waking reverie lasted until the lengthening shadows brought them back to the hunger in their bellies and to the relief of their homes. In the spring and summer of 1964, that boy was introduced to the wonders of university life by the physical environment of the campus, where he was able to engage all of his senses 6 blocks away from his home. Still innocent of the ways of placemaking, the names Maxwell and Bryan held no connotations. That boy was Jimmy Capshew, and he's lived in the university shadow since that time. So this is a story about my first encounters with Indiana University. As a 5th grader, I knew that the university had students and teachers and sports teams, but I had no clue about its administration, its curriculum, and even its size. I knew it was large enough to get deliciously lost in the endless pleasure of its campus. Flash forward to 1990, sorry. Flash forward to 1977 when I was an undergraduate at IU, majoring in psychology. I was working my way through school and obtained a unique job, residential houseman for Chancellor Herman B. Wells, who was then 75 years old. In exchange for about 10 hours of work a week, I had a Spartan room with an ensuite bathroom and all the food I cared to eat. My responsibilities were straightforward: serve dinner to the chancellor and eat with him, drive the cook home, lay a fire on the fireplace in the wintertime, and assist with food and drink at frequent dinner parties, as well as the occasional cocktail buffet for 100 people. I was treated as a member of his elective family, along with a cook, housekeeper, and chauffeur who worked during the week. I left Bloomington in 1980, bound for graduate school in the history of science at the University of Pennsylvania. Never expecting that I would find my way back to IU in 1990. My 10 academic fields were history of psychology and the history of higher education. Enough of my biography. turning to my latest title, Making Any University History, Landscape, and a Sense of Place, provides clues to my themes. Okay. So the book examines the written history of Indiana University, including the history of campus design. It explores how IU developed an institution identity through historical narratives of its people and their activities over its 200 plus years of existence. So basically, I'm a historian trying to understand the institution, okay? Among the questions I pursued were the following. One, when did the members of the university first take up his institutional history in the 19th century? Why did they do that? Two, how did the campus design evolve as a collaboration between the university community and the non-human environment? Three, how did institutional history grow over the course of the 20th century? So these are kind of the basic questions that I was pursuing. And to give you some more background, during the bicentennial, which was 2020, there was a lot of research involved in the history of IU. And so we found that there have been about 2 million people who have taken at least one course at Indiana University. And about 1 million have completed a course of study and graduated. So we have 1 million graduates in that 200 plus years. There have been about 50,000 faculty members during that time who've taught at the university. And about 650 individuals have served as members of the Board of Trustees or administrative officers of the university. So that's sort of the historical demography of that. And so that's a way to sort of start thinking about that big thing called the institution of Indiana University. So the book is divided in three different parts that pursue these questions. The first part is about the beginnings of IU and how it became involved in institutional history. The second part is about the history of the campus design from 1885 to 2020. And the third is about how historical work has been done in historic preservation and other areas of the university. So in some ways, this whole talk is going to be illustrated by Joe Lee's drawings that I commissioned him to do that. And so this is the first building at IU, is the seminary building. The university was chartered in 1820. It took 5 years to actually organize it so the students could come in 1825. We don't have good information about how many people were there. It is 10 or 12 boys, basically. And this was located on the corner of 2nd and College Avenues. And the campus is about 10 acres. You can see the trees that were torn down. Bloomington was just a tiny village with trees everywhere. Now there's no anything except for a historical marker of the original campus. So if you go down to the downtown Kroger's, that's sort of what the campus used to be. And so 10 acres there, but it's all been sold and not part of the university. So I'm just going to go through some of these. These are the chapter illustrations. So then the first professor was Baynard Resch Hall, who was a Presbyterian minister. He taught Greek and Latin, and he was from Philadelphia in the East. And he was got a job on the Indiana frontier. A couple of years later, another faculty member came along who was teaching mathematics. And then President Wiley came in 1828 when IU became a college, Indiana College. Both Hall and Harney had differences with President Wiley, and he forced them out in 1832. So he was the only faculty member, at least for the summer, until they hired new people. And it's a very interesting story, and I don't know, I'm not sure what I need to get into that right now, but you asked me during the question and answer period. But so what happens is that Hall went back out east, and he wrote a book about the fight between President Wiley and himself. And he had to fictionalize the book because he didn't want to be sued for libel. And so it's an interesting book. It's called The New Purchase, or 7.5 Years in the Far West. So this was the frontier, okay? I mean, it's hard to think about that, but it was 1842 when the book was published. And it was pretty well, it sold pretty well and things like that. And so that became sort of, I call him the first historian of the university, because that was the first eyewitness account of what the university was about. And so, but then he's not well known now. There is one house in the right quad that is named after him, but that's about it. So we don't celebrate him because he was the loser in terms of the fight between the president and the administration and faculty. So we have a very long history of faculty and administrative conflict. Okay, so then I get into this idea about how the field of the genre of IU history was created. It didn't happen at the beginning because they were just working away. They had like 40 students and a handful of faculty. They didn't have time to do that. There's no big deal about having students and exercise and stuff like that. But then in 1858, there was a fire that almost destroyed the university on the old campus. And then what happened is that the townspeople and the alumni, that's when the Alumni Association started to actually give money back to the university to rebuild the university. There was one big hall there. And so that happened. And then in 1883, they had another fire. There were two big buildings on campus, not big buildings, but reasonable size buildings. And there was the newest building called Science Hall. It was done maybe 10 years before, burned it down to the ground, and it destroyed a bunch of faculty papers and museum things and stuff like that. And so they were thinking about, the trustees were thinking, well, we need to move the campus because it's right close to the railroad, right? And the railroad is pretty loud and always going on and stuff like that. And so they basically found a place way east of downtown, Dunn's Woods, owned by the Dunn family. And they bought 20 acres to start to move the university in 1885. Okay, so these three people, Theophilus Wiley, James Woodburn, and David Banta, were part of the first group that was interested in sort of, we have a history now. We have a before and after the move, and there's things that would happen during the fires, and after that, people were thinking, well, we need to remember this, and also we also had a new president, David Starr Jordan, who was hired, had been a faculty member. He was became president in 1885. And he was very, before that, every president had they were all clergymen, and he was a scientist. And so the idea of having research as part of the point of the university was getting started. And so there was a lot of things going on. And so then what happens is that the idea that that we are on the move, it's like using history that yes, we are moving, and we've had more faculty and more students and stuff like that. And so this is a time when in the 1880s, about 120, 30, 40 people were IU students. Okay, so this is still early on. So then the next, oh yeah, and then okay, and then the next part is basically called the campus at Dunn's Woods, and so that's when you start getting into the campus history and how that shaped the culture of the university. And so this is a Jodley illustration of the first new buildings, Owen Hall and White Hall on the left and right. And these were brick. They were brick buildings because they needed to actually get some buildings on the ground because they lost the half of the campus, the old campus, and so they used the bricks from the fire and stuff like that, and so they moved there in 1885, as I mentioned, and so those two buildings are they're in the corner of the campus, and so they started building more buildings. And this is a 1892 image of the campus. Half of those buildings are gone now, but you can see that. So this is Owen and Wiley, right? They're still here. That's Maxwell Hall, and that is Kirkwood Hall. So they started building from this corner basically a frame around the woods, okay? And so back in the day, the medieval times, they would have 4 buildings around a central green. So a building at every corner and then a central green. And so IU has a giant medieval quadrangle with buildings, a bunch of buildings on each side of the campus, okay? So that's the campus. I wouldn't even call it like a plan, but that became sort of what they did. They didn't have any money, right? This is way back where they're lucky to get the buildings done. And so so that's the beginning of sort of the campus design, and using that, just using trees and local limestone. Everything is limestone after that, and then the running water in the woods. And so that's part of the basic campus design that's started and continues. Okay, so then we go into the Union Building. This is a really wonderful illustration that these were buildings. The memorial is called the Memorial Union because it was part of the Memorial Fund after World War I, where they raised money to build the buildings, Memorial Hall, a Memorial Stadium, the first stadium, which is gone. Now it's an arboretum on campus, but and so those were done in the 20s and 30s. And so the university then it moved beyond the quadrangle, making more moving out of the little beginning of the 20 acres. And so they kept on buying more land. By 1940 or so, they had about 140 acres of land. So this is a quote from Sheldon Rothblatt. A campus contains the indispensable, innumerable symbols of structures, buildings, gardens, bridges, walks, avenues, glades, statues, plazas, fountains, statuaries, towers, gateways, and also follies. Quirky literary inheritance in forms of inscriptions, unlike structures, and over almost unusual ones. So I put that in there because there was in that same period, in 1908, they created the Rose Well House, which is basically, it's a folly in a sense that there's no activity other than just having a beautiful building and people just hang out there, right? And so, and that was what they did. They used the gates, or the portals from the surviving building of the old campus and moved them over here. They also moved other things, like the sundial was from the old campus, and they moved it there. And so there's a lot of back and forth in terms of the historical artifacts that are there that then have meanings from years and years and years of students and stuff. So this is the sunken garden that doesn't exist anymore. There was a small quarry, the Dunn Quarry, that was on East 3rd Street, and that had been played out. And so they created a sunken garden, and it was so 1928 until about 1952. And now it's that basically the area where the greenhouse is. Okay. And they had to, basically tear down this wonderful sunken garden. It's also called the Passion Pit because the students would go and hang out and have their, and it's really close. It's really close to the Memorial Hall, which was the female dorm. Okay. Okay. And then as we get into more recent things, the main library in 1970 renamed for Herman Wells in 2005, and during the Wells administration from 1937 to 1962. The campus expanded from 140 acres to 1,800 acres. So Wells bought tons of land for a land bank because he thought after the war, there going to be a lot of need for student housing and halls and things like that. And so that was, he was the guy who really thought about the future, right? And he was also quite interested in the campus itself. Okay, and then and so this is the current campus, right? All the buildings and even beyond so you see you've got the woods are still here, the old Crescent, right? Crescent building around it, but then it's way out there. So currently the campus is about 2,000 acres. So Wells was really the guy who made that happen. And in this chapter, I did some work on the old Crescent. So it turns out that the old Crescent was not called the old Crescent until 1980, right? And so because basically when they nominated for the National Register of Historic Places, they called it the Old Crescent the first time. And so that just caught on really quickly and stuff. And then there's also, I talk about the law school edition in 1982, where they encroach onto the historic part of the campus, and they got pushed back. And so the local community and the academic community worked on that. And then the Gulf War, which is 1999 to 2000, where there was an idea for a giant or a really big golf course that would be a private club on the campus. So there's all kinds of stuff in there, and a lot of people will know some of these things. One of the things that I can't show, but basically there's a campus map that's an interactive map, and so online you can these are layers: 1885, 1915, 1940, 1960, 1980, and 2020. So you can see how the campus grew over time to this giant campus. So that's something that's, you know, a little cool thing you can do online. So then takes me to part 3, which is about 20th century. The centennial was in 1920. And so the history as an asset to the university was being known. Then we've got a slide. This you know who this person is? Her name is Ivy Chamness. Everybody heard about that? She was a person who was the director of publications, the first woman administrator, big administrator, and she did all the publications, all the bulletins, all the registers, all including the alumni magazine and stuff. And she really was the person who kept the university history alive for that period. And so just finding her about her and letting her see her as a major person. Then we've got this chapter is called Academic Community and University Necrology. Okay, there was a necrologist, Harry Day, and his secretary, Elizabeth Green, and then Don Gray at the bottom. They were responsible for the faculty memorial resolution. So every faculty had a memorial resolution. It was written by their colleagues, right? So this is a huge place for history in the university. And then the last chapter is the resurrection of Wiley House. This does not work very well. Okay, this is the Wiley House. And so this is kind of a composite picture. You've got Andrew Wiley and his wife and a bunch of kids. Theophilus Wiley and his wife also lived in there. That was their African-American servant, lived there for 50 years. Herman Wells, this is Mrs. Hershey, and then these are Joe's interpretations of some of the kids and stuff like that. And so then I'm almost done here. Okay, so everyone can learn to observe and recognize the past within the present. The purpose of this book is to identify how the university expresses its enduring values through its history, but also its landscape, leaving a lasting sense of place. And so this is the URL for the book. You just do a search on Capshew and Making IU, and then this is my email address if you want to talk to me. So I've got 5 minutes, I guess, for questions. Okay, no questions. Okay, good. Let's go home. Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, did the name Crescent Donut Shop get its name from IU?
No.
No, right, okay.
I have no idea. Next question. Oh, yeah.
So I'm a little confused about, it started out as a seminary, then it became a college and then a university. What's the timeline on
Okay,
that?
so seminary has a pretty expansive meaning. It's not just religion. Okay, it's not an ecclesiastical institution. So it can include things that are educational, right? back in that time. And IU is really kind of a junior college, maybe that first few years, and it's called the seminary. And that's part of the original language, the seminary of learning. You usually people don't say it's a seminary of learning, and that's because IU did have a bunch of professors presidents who were clergymen. It was not ever a non-secular. It's a non-secular institution. It's always been that, and so people do be confused on that, right? There was no religious instruction. They did have to go to chapel, though, right? I mean, there was some. I guess there was, but it was like extra, right? But yeah, so it started as that similar learning, and then became a college, 4-year college, and then the university in 1838. So okay, what's the one here on the?
I can read it for you. It says, this is from Jim Sims. I recall the old 10th Street Stadium, which is now, I believe, the area of the Arboretum and the Chime Tower. I thought this was significant. What was the most significant facility campus change, if you can pick one?
Well, one of my favorite ones is the bell tower of the student building, right? I mean, that was in 1906, right? And that was a way to have a sonic landscape too, right? And so we had this bell tower, and then the bicentennial bell tower was another one there. And so that you sort of know you're on campus, right? That this is like, it's part of like the acoustic environment, right? So that's, but yeah, it's such a complicated campus, right? I mean, it's everywhere. It's all kinds of stuff. And so that's about, I guess, what I needed to say. I guess people want to go home.
Yeah, relative to other major universities in the United States, size-wise, land, where does?
IU's pretty high, right? And the other thing too is that IU has not screwed up the campus. A lot of like the University of Virginia, it's a beautiful campus, the old campus. But then there's like a major thoroughfare, and then it's a hodgepodge of stuff, right? And so IU is unified in that way. And in fact, there's a book around 1990, I think, The Campus is a Work of Art. And this guy was a landscape architect, and he rated campuses on, aesthetic beauty and coherence and all this kind of stuff. IU is in the top 5, and so it's unusual, right? And then Terry Klapak's book during the bicentennial, he wrote a wonderful coffee table book on the campus at IU, and he calls it it's the America's Legacy Campus or something like that. And that's sort of the general feeling of the campus. That's and there's a lot of stuff in the book that really talks more about students' reactions to the campus and stuff like that. But yeah.
Jim, thank you very much. Will you be available for questions
Yeah.
afterwards?
Yes, of course.
Okay. So many things to take away from the talk. First of all, that almost 200 years ago, that the faculty and the administration were not getting along. And then the passion pit, that was kind of an interesting one. So Jim, thank you for your presentation and everything you've done for Indiana University. In honor of your talk, a donation will be made this quarter to Off Night Productions. I want to thank our volunteers, Art, Andrea, Bill, Leslie, Lauren, Glenda, Michael, Dave, Cindy, Sally, Judy, Tracy, Mike, Lynn, Tyler. Good job on the technology today. We struggled with the speakers, the microphones. Next meeting will be October 7th in the Georgian Room. Jordan Davis from the Chocolate Moose will bring us up to date regarding the Bloomington food scene. Tyler, if you could please share the graphic. And please stand if you're able. of the things we think, say, or do. First, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? Fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned? And fifth, is it fun?